Hello, everyone, and welcome to the introductory episode of the Carpe Natem Podcast. My name is Nate De La Hoya-Reynoso, and I am your host. I would be lying if I said that I didn't write this podcast episode or record this podcast episode hundreds and hundreds of times. Before it was the Carpe Natem Podcast, it was Rockstar Mentality Radio, and I could get tons of episodes done, but the very first one was always the hardest one for me. I always think that you have to make a good first impression, no matter what. So maybe because of that, I put so much pressure on myself to make the very first episode the best one, when in fact it might be the worst one. I really can't decide for the audience what's good or what's bad. I have to back off myself and be free of judgment from myself, so that way I can just put out episode after episode. As of recording this, I have 3-4 episodes already recorded. And I even have an episode 1 already recorded, but I feel like it didn't capture what this podcast is really about. And over the last couple of weeks, I've really tried to gain clarity about what exactly I want my message to be, what I want this podcast to be about, why I'm doing it. So let's start from the top. Who am I? Well, my name is Nate. At the time of this recording, I'm 27, born and raised in San Francisco, California, and recently moved to Austin, Texas with my wife and my puppy. I am a training and development specialist. In my most recent line of work, I have been focused on training and onboarding. What that means is when a company typically hires new staff, I'm the person that either scouts, interviews, qualifies, and places candidates into new positions, and then guide them through the necessary trainings that they need to have before they go to their respected site. They could be working at a bank, they could be working at a mine, they could be working at a tech company. Doesn't really matter. I just need to make sure that they are qualified and certified before starting, so that way I and they are in compliance with the contract, the organization, and of course all state and federal laws. What do I train? Well, I have trained soft skills, which is communication, collaboration, leadership development. I've trained in technical skills, which is Microsoft, Google applications, the Adobe suite. I've taught beginner introductory courses all the way to advanced courses on some applications. I have 2 Microsoft Office special certifications, and I've gotten to speak on several different stages across the United States, either as a speaker, a trainer, an assistant trainer, or as a musician. I have been on stages since I was 4 years old, and probably even younger than that. The stage is my home. In front of a crowd is my safe space. I love being given the opportunity to speak, to educate, to uplift, to inspire, to perform, and to make other people smile. Like, I really do enjoy performative art. I do love changing someone's viewpoint, helping them shift their perspective. I love seeing that face in the crowd when they get like a really big aha moment from a lesson that's being taught on stage. There was really 2 moments that kind of pushed me in this direction. For being a musician, I think that was really pushed on me by my grandpa, who was a multi-instrumental, talented musician in his own right. Him and his brothers would record their own songs, and they would write their lyrics and compose their music, and I think that was amazing. I remember being really young and seeing my grandfather had instruments like a guitar and an accordion, and all self-taught, which I thought was amazing. So being in front of people never really scared me, because when I was really, really young, my grandfather would put me on stage and have me sing songs that were popular at the time, like Selena songs. My grandparents would both ask me to sing songs to them, and I thought that was really sweet. Like, I don't really sing anymore, but just reminding myself that I had 2, actually 4 grandparents who enjoyed my singing as a kid. I just always kind of sought that that adrenaline rush, that rush of being on stage, that feeling of people staring and watching you perform and you giving it your all. To speak as a speaker, that came later. That came in college. I remember being at a community college, and I had really enjoyed community college way more than I did high school because of the freedom, because of the ideas that were being taught, because of the amazing teachers. And one of those amazing teachers was this man named Mr. Dupre, and he taught a counseling 101 course or counseling 100 course. It's one of those introductory courses that you take in your first year when you're going after your associate's degree. It's in the list of general ed classes, and what he would do was he would speak and he would give us lessons and have us look up authors and people who were also great leaders and do reports on them. And he would often bring in people to the class, and they would tell us their story. They would tell us what they do, their profession, adversities that they overcame, how they started from shaky bottoms to points of success where they're at now. And we would write our reports and we would turn them in, and that's all fine and dandy. But I went to go visit him after I had passed his class. And I remember I walked in and the class had just started, and he looked at me and a spark went in his eye, and he's just like, "Class, let me introduce you to somebody. This is a man who has been participating in activism. This is a man who has been putting himself head first in all of the programs here at Skyline College." And he just started going off, and I was caught by surprise, like, what is this man about to do? And he put me in front of his class of students, and he had me just tell them about me. That whole experience was a blur, but I went in there and I had told them how earlier that year I had participated in the March on the Capitol. There was a protest and activism that was happening at Skyline College, of course, across the U.S., but they were doing these marches on the Capitol, and I had hopped on a bus with a group of other students from Skyline, and we all went to Sacramento and held up signs and kind of just saw what they were doing out there with the protests. And it was just nice to be really involved with the whole movement. I felt like I was part of a collective who wanted some sort of change to happen, even though, let's be honest, at 18, 19, I wasn't really that educated in what we were protesting and didn't understand what was going on. They were just like, "Those guys are bad, and you should hold up a sign that says they're bad." And I was like, "Okay." And just kind of went with the flow. But I thought, the overall goal was to implement some sort of change that would benefit the future of people. And I was down for that. And I told the class that I participated in that I joined their the A-Step program, which is a program at Skyline that where you join. There's like the A-Step, there's the Puentes, and then there's another one for like a Pacific Islander, Asian kind of heritage background. But the A-Step program was, I think, African Success Through Excellence and Perseverance, and those classes were tailored to black students, where a lot of our literature and history was very focused on, black artists, black authors, black businessmen, black psychology. Like, a lot of it was very black and brown centric. Puentes was the other program for Latinos, which kind of followed the same thing, where a lot of their English courses had Latino themes, very Mexican, Salvadorian, South American, Central American themed classes. And honestly, I think I should have joined the Puentes because, I was raised Mexican. My ethnic background is Mexican Salvadorian, and I'm also mixed with God knows how much other things because our lineage is, never clear. But, I do see that I have Afro-Latino genetics, and I do identify with like Afro-Latino cultures. I'm mistaken for being Puerto Rican constantly. But I was raised American and I was raised Mexican, and I understand parts of Salvadorian culture as well. Also grew up with hip hop and learned about a lot of things that were going on in the world through music. But for whatever reason, I had gone to Skyline College. I had spoken with a counselor who ended up putting me in a bunch of A-step classes, and I don't blame her because I had super long curly hair and I looked like Corbin Blue from High School Musical. And most of the time people thought I looked half white, half black, I'm very racially ambiguous. And they put me in the A-Step program, and it was amazing. I got to hear a lot of amazing professors speak, and their knowledge was amazing. Like, they introduced me to, black and brown artists and writers and authors and poets. I had a music teacher who could play a flute like a fucking champ. I haven't really decided whether or not I'm going to be cursing on this podcast, but I just said the F word, so I'm just going to say I feel like if I were going to be my most authentic self, I'm going to say words that fit the context of what I'm saying. I'm not going to make this an F bomb type podcast, but man, if it slips out and I say a fuck or a shit, you know what? There it is. And that's me being authentic, that's me being real. Anyway, I got to speak in front of Mr. Dupre's Counseling 100 class, and I got to tell them about my experience with A-Step, how the teachers were amazing, the little bit of activism I did in Sacramento, and I don't really remember what I said, but I was told after I got out from being in front of the class, my friend looked at me and was like, "Hey man, you should do that professionally. You're really good at that." And Mr. Dupre also said, "You're a very good communicator. You should look into making that your profession." And that's when I changed my major to communications in college. And that was really cool because there was a whole class that wrote a report on me. There's 25 plus essays about me and what they learned from what I said. And I think that was really cool. It was just a very early glimpse of like, this is possible for you. You can do something like this. You could be very good at this skill in particular, and you can make a living from it. The second incident that made me want to be a speaker was when I was about 21. I had joined in a multi-level marketing group, business, whatever you want to call it, where we sold vitamins and supplements that were supposed to give you these amazing results. And the company was called Veo. I don't really know how good Veo is doing now, but the leaders were these guys who were big on Vima and other MLMs at the time. I feel like they do really well in college. It's always that guy who's really cool, who's like, "I drive a BMW, and you can too if you sell this can of caca to your friends." And they got successful off of it. Fuck it, if that's how they made their money, then it was really cool. It was very entrepreneurial. I learned a lot from it. But I was an okay MLM person. I had a couple people in my downline. I recruited new people. I had a team. And one of the leaders is a man named Brandon Bozarth. Now, Brandon right now is in the space of transformational technology. He's doing his own seminars and events. One that I'm going to be a part of in the end of June, where he kind of goes over facilitation, where he's not so much he's not a mentor, he's not a coach, he's not a guide, he's not a guru, he's a facilitator. And what that means to him, by his definition, from what I'm understanding, is that he's there to hold space and help the person he's helping discover clarity, to gain purpose, to figure out what's blocking their path and help them unblock their path. And he's not forcing anybody to do anything. He's not basing his results on whether you change or not, or he is just being there, being present, staying focused, and facilitating the transformation as it happens. Now, Mr. Bozarth, years ago, was a diamond, pearl, emerald, sapphire, whatever the highest ranking goddamn title you can have in Vale was. He had a very large downline, and he was very successful at marketing to peers and to getting people to join. And he was doing an event, or somebody he knew was doing an event at this house in Burlingame, I had just gotten off work. I came to go show support, and he just threw me in front of the crowd. I don't remember why. He just did it. And I spoke to them, told them how pumped up and excited I was. I had told them some of the success that I had, what was working for me, that they could do it too, that they could change their lives, that they could achieve anything that they dream if they just work hard. And I truly meant that statement when I said it. But I'm pretty sure that I went up there as a hype man. So I went up there and just kind of did my best hype man speech, and I just came up with it off the top of my head. But I'd gotten off stage again, and they had told me, it was my god brother and Brandon who was like, "Hey man, that was really good. Do you do that often? You seem so comfortable on stage. You should speak more. You should do that more. Like you're really good at it." And that's kind of how it started, where I was like, okay, I want to do something that involves speaking in front of people. And I thought to myself that the way of doing that was becoming like a corporate banker trainer, because at the time I was working for a bank called Fells Wargo. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to use them by name, but I was working as a banker for them, and I loved banker training. I loved the facilitator role. I wanted to be one, so I thought by climbing the corporate ladder, that's how I could achieve my goals. Through Veo, the network marketing company, I was then introduced to personal development. Now, when I say personal development, I'm talking about like transformative technology seminars where you go to these places with other like-minded people and you work through your shit. You do shadow work. You find out what your purpose is. You better your business skills. You network. You do whatever you have to. And I was going to these courses that were being put on by Peak Potentials, New Peaks. I was going to this thing called the Millionaire Mind Experience, or the Millionaire Mind Intensive, because of how many legal battles they had gone through. The name had changed so many times, but if you knew about Peak Potentials, they were started by T. Harv Eker, who wrote The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, which is a fantastic book, and I may do several episodes on the chapters because it's still profound. The technology in that books still work, and I feel like if more people learned about it, more people would have success in their lives and could bring themselves to elevated places. And so anyway, I was doing these personal development seminars. I was very, very involved. I drank their Kool-Aid 100%, and for the record, it's not T. Harv Eker that was being sued or in any legal battles. He had sold the company, and then the company went in many different directions after that. But he had started all the courses, and all the foundational courses that you would take with Peak Potentials were all classes and courses that were done by T. Harv Eker. And my God, they changed my life. I had done some amazing work through Peak Potentials, where I had done some intensive meditations, where I had gone through challenges that tested me physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. They were able to pull issues and engrams and problems that I had buried deep in me through trauma for years, and pulled them out by the root so that I could get some clarity, that I could understand exactly what was going on with me. I understood my coping mechanisms. I understood why I was the way I am, to an extent. To an extent. I was learning so much about myself and others and language and communication that it just blew my mind, and I wanted nothing more than to be a person on their stage, to go around the country and do transformative work like this and get people to shift their mind in like a weekend, and then induct them into a group of people who had gone through the same things. Like, it sounds silly, but you go to a free seminar, you go to $100 seminar, or whatever it is, you go into an introductory course, and you say, like, this resonates with me so much, I want to continue my education. So you put your money down, and I've spent thousands of dollars, I'm talking thousands and thousands of dollars, on courses, on hotel costs, flights. Like, I'm talking about, like, money just spent on myself. Like, I didn't go to a fancy university like Stanford or Harvard, but I learned from business experts. I've gotten to see, Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins couple feet from me. I've been on the same stage as Lisa Nichols and helped out with events where tremendous speakers and success stories and billionaires got to speak, and being in that energy is insane to me. The amount of self-discovery that I was able to obtain, it has no price. I look at the investment that I made in myself and realize that it was the best investment I made in my life. The only problem I had, I can now understand this now with hindsight, as now that I'm older, is that I didn't understand what to do with all this information. I knew what was causing the behaviors that were affecting me negatively. But as hard as I would try to correct myself, I fell into the same traps of ego, of temptation, of addiction, of lack of self-control, lack of discipline. I do believe that trauma and things that we experience are things that, if not tended to and properly healed, will bleed into our day-to-day life. It'll affect relationships, it'll affect job performance, it'll affect your income level, it'll affect everything that has to do with you, financially, physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And I still have unresolved trauma that I'm still working on today. I'm not perfect, but I have clarity, and I have done what I can to rectify the things that I've done wrong in my life. One day I just woke up and realized that all my behavior from the past was disgusting. And maybe that's incredibly dramatic, but that's how it felt. I woke up one day as if there was something on my palate that I just couldn't take off. And the same things that my friends high-fived me for were things I looked at in disgust. So now, as someone who has worked on themselves and has gone to therapy and have tried to rehabilitate my life and I'm in the process of fixing myself. And even by saying that I'm fixing myself is to admit that there is a problem. What I'm really trying to learn how to do is be as present as possible, is to be as open as possible, and to be as forgiving as possible. Not only to others, but to myself. Because when I was younger, even though I didn't have the tools and resources that I have now, I know that what I did at those times was what I thought would be best for me. And even if it came at the cost or expense of others, it was just not ethical or morally correct. And, I definitely have the sincere remorse for my actions. And the more time that passes, the more I have to learn to forgive myself for the behaviors and actions that hurt others. Because I can be sorry all day, every day. Doesn't mean that they have to accept my apology. But who I have to be good with is myself. I have to learn why what I did was incorrect, how to prevent myself from doing it in the future, how to prevent others from doing it. Doing what is correct, what is ethical, what is logical, what is the best for everybody, and doing everything that I can in my power to be good, quote unquote good. So this podcast is a collection of ideas that I've learned, wisdom that I hope to share with others, and it's also going to be a way of me figuring out what exactly this world is about. I'm on a journey of self-discovery. I am rehabilitating myself from where I was into the person I am now. And none of you know my story. None of you know what I've been through. None of you can understand what I've gone through. And that goes the other way around too. I don't know exactly what you've been through. I don't understand what you've experienced, and I never will. Our own experiences are individual and unique. And from my experience, as I'm trying to learn this world, what I've learned is that by helping others and by spreading messages of positivity and encouragement and wisdom that can help others get to a next step, by doing that, we can move ourselves and others to a higher form of existence, to a better place. We can move from a place of survival to a place of abundance. And I don't care if this makes me $1 million, $1 billion, $1 trillion. If I'm able to change someone else for the better, and they're able to use their newfound perspective and their newfound purpose to change the world and they become the million, billion, trillionaire, then I've done good because I did what I thought was best for me, which is help others do what's best for them, and then they too can then help others. And it's like a disease, but a beautiful, beautiful disease that spreads. I don't know if the right word is disease, but I can't think of anything that spreads better than a plague. But wouldn't that plague be amazing if it was full of love and change and revolution and art and spiritual awakening? If you could get spiritual awakening by someone coughing in your mouth, dude, cough in my mouth right now. And that's another thing. Is like I love to uplift, inspire, and educate, and I will do that by using my creativity and humor and any knowledge that I've picked up on the way. So I may say something that's a little bit outlandish, something that's coming out of left field, but that's just me being authentic. I understand the world better by making it funny. And even through tragedy and tragic moments, I will try to see what's the bright side on it, what's the positive on it, what's the glass half full look or viewpoint for this moment. And it's hard and it's difficult, and I'm not perfect. I'm not going to get it right 100% of the time. I may say something on here that will deeply offend people. I might have an opinion and be very strong about it and have a conversation with somebody who changes it completely from one day to the next. I'll be thinking the opposite of what I thought. But that's life. That's the world we live in. That's how we grow as people. Sometimes we operate with outdated software or tools that don't meet the criteria of the job that we're working on. Sometimes we don't really have the resources or the knowledge or the awareness to understand how our actions impact others, how our words impact our thoughts, how our thoughts impact our world. And I'm talking about physical manifestation as well as things that you don't even think about, like what are you attracting in your life? What are you bringing to the table? What are your thoughts bringing into your life? Are you even aware that your thoughts are bringing things into your life? So I hope those who are listening get something out of this. And if you don't, I'm just happy you listened. You've changed my life by giving me an audience member. And me in front of an audience member equals happiness. Because if I get to perform, if I get to speak in front of 1, 2, a million, 3 million, 10 million, doesn't matter. I'm going to come with the same energy. I'm going to come with the same intention. I want to help as many people as I can. And I'm hoping that by doing this podcast, I get to change the lives of others. And if I don't, again, I'm still happy with myself because I'm doing what I believe is my purpose, which is helping others communicate more effectively with themselves, with others. I'm educating, uplifting, and inspiring. I'm trying to move the world forward in a way that improves our existence instead of destroys our existence. In a way, I feel like I'm also atoning for my sins. But my wounds are my wisdom. I've made mistakes. I've had a troubled past. I've done what I can to correct my behavior, to make myself better, to really understand why and how my behavior affected other people. And now with the wisdom that I have, with the feelings that I now hold, with the knowledge that I've now collected, I'm going to share that with other people. I'm going to do what I have to do to make my impact on this world, and so that future generations can look back and know that there were people who were trying their best to push the world in a good direction, who had the intention of making the place better for them. And in turn, I hope they pass that on to their kids. And as a species, as a race, as a collective, and I'm not just talking like races and color, we're humans. We're the human race. We are who we are. We are on this earth for whatever reason. And what we do with that, I hope, is for the betterment of the people that live on here, for the world that lives on here, for the animals and for the environment. We do what we can to push everything forward. And we move towards a utopia. And I know a utopia is a fantasy, but to dream and to push forward towards that, I feel like would move nations and countries and people into a direction where we can flourish in the future. If not now, someday, through the collective efforts that everyone puts in. And I'm going to do my part. And this podcast is part of it. So thank you for listening to this long introductory episode. Most episodes will have a theme, will revolve around a quote. It'll be me disseminating information that I took from a book or a video that I watched, or maybe even just something I thought of. I'm going to be sharing my thoughts with you. I'm going to be sharing my journey with you, and I hope that it brings a little bit of uplift to you. I will have a website available, a Facebook group as well, and pretty much be on all social media to promote the podcast, as well as other programs and courses that I create. I will be offering coaching. I will be offering masterminds and meetups, as well as ongoing courses that I have been in the works to develop with some really amazing and influential people. Of course, you can always support by liking, subscribing, leaving a comment, giving us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're streaming this from. Leave us a good review. The website isn't complete yet, but I'm pretty sure it'll have the word Carpe Natem in it. Oh yeah, and then before I go away, let's talk about the title, Carpe Natem. What is that? There's Carpe Diem, which means seize the day, and there's Carpe Noctem, which means seize the night. Carpe Natem is seize the cheeks, seize the ass. Seize the booty cheeks, grab life by the butt, and grab a nice, healthy handful. I feel like when going through life, you gotta grab the bull by the horns, but you also gotta grab life by the butt cheeks. Let's go, baby! Like, it just makes me excited to hear. And, of course, my name is Nate De La Hoya-Reynoso, so my name is in the podcast Carpe Natem, Seize the Cheeks. And if you look at the podcast art, it's a big old peach, because a peach looks like a booty. Booty makes me happy. I'm married, so the only booty that I can squeeze is my wife's and my dog's. But man, am I a booty lover. And most men can relate that their greatest times of motivation had come at the cost or the expense of chasing cheeks. And maybe some girls can relate too. I know a bunch of girls that actually love staring at men's asses. So, homegirl, if you want to chase some cheeks too and get after it, then let's go! Thank you guys for sticking all the way to the end. This is the Carpe Natem Podcast. I hope I made you smile. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. Peace!